The coffee was still warm when Frank Marquette vanished in the riverside town of Hammond, Louisiana, population 8,312. The July night arrived with a violent downpour, lashing the dirt roads along the Tangipahoa River bank. At 9:12 p.m., Frank's neighbor, Clyde Bourne, looked out his kitchen window and saw the man's silver pickup truck turn into the narrow drive leading to the wooden house at the end of Willow Creek Road. In the truck was 8-year-old Clara, hugging her go-kart helmet still caked with mud from the race. The headlights faded into the thick rain, leaving only distant thunder echoing from the swamp. The next morning, the house lights were still on, the door ajar, the dinner table unfinished, and no one inside. What happened in the hours that followed would haunt Hammond for nearly 40 years. Before diving deeper into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest cases. In the summer of 1974, the town of Hammond, Louisiana, nestled between pine forests and the sprawling swamps along the Tangipahoa River. The air was heavy with humidity, thick with the smell of mud and pine resin, cicadas blending into the steam that blanketed the narrow streets. The town was mostly unchanged, life moving slowly amid old wooden houses, general stores, and the single gas station on the highway. Frank Marquette, 38, was one of the most familiar faces around, a respected mechanic, living quietly, speaking little, spending most of his time at the shop, and caring for his 8-year-old daughter, Clara. Their house sat on the southern edge of Hammond, where pine canopies shaded the dirt road leading to the riverbank. His wife, Maria, worked as an accountant at a car dealership in town, a meticulous, reserved woman known to many, but close to few. On an early July evening, as the summer heat still clung to the rooftops, rain suddenly poured down. A strong storm from the river pulled in, thunder rumbling far off, then rain tearing down like a rip. Frank and Clara were at the go-kart track, where he and town friends held amateur races on weekends. After the rain started, father and daughter packed up and left the track earlier than usual. Some remembered seeing Frank's familiar silver pickup leave the lot, headlights cutting through the rain. They said it slowed at the turn into the southern residential area, then vanished into the night. Soon after, the rain grew heavier, wind howling through the trees, and no one saw or heard anything more. By midnight, the small neighborhood was completely silent, only the Marquette porch light flickering through the thick rain. The next morning, as the sky cleared from the storm, a few neighbors noticed that light still on. The front door was ajar, curtains swaying lightly in the wind. No one answered knocks. Inside, everything was intact. The dinner table half set with unwashed plates, a jacket hanging on a chair back, a cooled coffee cup on the kitchen counter, and a pair of children's shoes neatly placed at the foot of the stairs. No signs of chaos, but no signs of intentional departure either. Word spread in the neighborhood that Frank and Clara had disappeared overnight. By noon, with the sky clear, Maria Marquette appeared at the Hammond police station. She walked to the front desk, sweating, face weary and eyes blank, saying her husband and daughter had not returned home from the previous night. The duty officer looked up, noting her words carefully, asking basic details, last seen when, what they were wearing, what vehicle, any luggage. She answered steadily, briefly, eyes fixed on the desk. The officer noted, 2 missing simultaneously, 1 adult, 1 child. After the questions, the report was signed and passed to command. In the small office behind the desk, Chief Gary Norton took the file and skimmed it. He was an experienced, cautious man, more used to civil matters than criminal cases. The report was brief to the point of emptiness. No direct witnesses, no clear location, just missing after a rainy night. Still, a child's involvement meant Norton couldn't dismiss it. He ordered an official file opened, classified missing persons, cause undetermined. The case number was inked in black at the top corner. Case hash 74197, missing persons, Frank and Clara Marquette. At the same time, Norton called young officer Scott Trost in. Trost, 27, had just finished a morning patrol shift. He had a reputation for being careful, detailed, and serious. Norton assigned Trost to inspect the Marquette home scene with 2 assisting officers. "Note every detail, don't jump to conclusions," he said dryly. Trost took the file, Polaroid camera, notebook, and evidence bags, then drove to the southern Hammond residential area where the Marquette family lived. The road into the area was flooded from the previous night's rain, pines shading both sides. Trost rolled down the window, wind carrying the sharp smell of mud and pine sap. In the file on the seat, he reread Maria's statement. Husband and daughter left the go-kart track in the evening. No calls, no notes, no luggage, no recorded conflicts, no evidence of preparation to leave. Those details made Trost think of something more unusual than a simple runaway. When the car stopped in front of the Marquette wooden house, afternoon sunlight cast a cold, wet glow. On the porch steps, the light was still on, pale yellow illuminating lingering water streaks. The front door was ajar, hinges damp, lock showing no pry marks. Inside, living room and porch lights were on, pale yellow light highlighting dust in the air. Furniture intact, no signs of struggle or hasty movement. On the dinner table, 2 unwashed porcelain plates, beside them a dark, cooled coffee cup. The wooden chair pulled out from the table, tablecloth slightly wrinkled as if someone had just stood. The stairs to the upper floor clean, no unusual marks. The children's shoes still neatly at the base, as if the owner would return to put them on any moment. Trost walked through the house, noting every detail meticulously, from window conditions to object positions. In the living room, TV off, wall clock stopped at 10:40, likely from power outage in last night's rain. Back door locked from inside, no break-in signs. Trost bent to check the wooden floor, seeing a few small dried mud streaks, not enough to determine direction. He opened the porch door, stepped out. On the damp ground, 2 clear deep tire tracks, different size from Frank's truck, narrower tires with different tread. A few steps away, men's shoe prints in the mud, larger than Frank's foot size per the file. The prints headed to the main road, then vanished at the slope. Trost measured tire width, noted in his book, photographed with Polaroid. Moving around the door, he found a small mud-caked item, a dark red fabric scrap, thick, like from a jacket or scarf. He used tweezers to pick it up, placed in evidence bag, labeled 74, Rose Shith. Trost marked in his book, evidence collected at front porch. Beyond this fabric, no missing or disturbed items, cash, leather wallet, Frank's watch still on the table by the window. ID papers, spare keys, Clara's medicine box intact in kitchen drawer. No luggage gone, no signs of long trip preparation. Trost stepped into the yard, observing surroundings. Tire tracks extended from the drive, blending with rainwater runoff from the road edge. He cordoned the suspect area with nylon rope, had the 2 assistants note coordinates and take additional photos. Returning inside, Trost paused at the dinner table, looking at the 2 plates with cold food remnants. He wrote in his book, "No signs of voluntary departure." Meal interrupted. Chief Norton read the notes, nodded, then ordered Trost to complete the scene report and transfer evidence to county storage that day. In the official report, the final note was in clear slanted handwriting. No evidence missing persons left home, intentionally. The sample coded 74, rod was sealed, labeled, and sent to storage for analysis. Leaving the house, Trost stood on the steps, looking back at the lit room through the foggy glass. Everything in the house intact, just missing 2 people, a father, a child, and nothing explained why they vanished on an ordinary rainy night. The next morning, as the sun rose over the pines, Trost and Chief Norton returned to the Hammond station for the next investigation step. After handing over evidence and scene photos to county storage, they began witness statements. The witness list included family, adjacent neighbors, and Frank's close friends at the mechanic shop. Maria Marquette was the first formally interviewed. She arrived on time, neatly dressed, face calm. In the interview room, Morning light filtered through dusty blinds onto Trost's notebook. Maria said their marriage recently had no serious issues, just that Frank wanted a change of scenery, maybe leave Louisiana for a while. She said he had mentioned wanting to take Clara away for a few days to think, and perhaps father and daughter went on a short trip somewhere. Asked why not report sooner. Maria said she thought they left for the night, but when they didn't return by morning, she worried. Trost asked more about the evening. She said she was in Baton Rouge, visiting her father Rocco Devereaux, and only learned when returning home the next morning. Answers recorded verbatim. That afternoon, police called to verify with Rocco Devereaux. He confirmed his daughter was at his house that evening and left early the next morning. Asked specific times Maria arrived, he said, around 9 p.m. and for departure, about 6 a.m. Both noted by Trost for cross-reference with neighbor reports of vehicle sounds and lights near the Marquette home in similar time frames. Meanwhile, assistant officers interviewed nearby homes. Next-door neighbor Ruth Keller stated that on the heavy rain evening, she saw vehicle headlights through her window around 9:30, then heard engine noise briefly outside. Looking out, she recognized a longer, lower vehicle than Frank's. Per her, it parked near the Marquette porch for minutes, then left. Another neighbor, Thomas Leary, said he saw a tall man in a dark coat walk from the Marquette yard to the road before heavy rain. Under porch light, face unclear. Leary emphasized hearing a car door slam hard after, then silence. Trost noted this with comment, "Time matches Rocco's Baton Rouge presence." Beyond neighbors, Trost contacted 3 co-workers at Frank's shop on Mason Road. They confirmed Frank was punctual, no missed shifts, no signs of leaving. One said Frank mentioned taking daughter to go-kart race weekend, but nothing about leaving Louisiana. Another said Frank just took a new repair contract, expected to work next month. This contradicted Maria's want to go away a few days. Trost noted, no financial or personal preparation for trip, luggage, papers, belongings at home. That evening, in the office, Trost compiled statements and compared timelines. If Maria was truly in Baton Rouge from 9 p.m., she couldn't be near Hammond then. However, neighbor statements on headlights and sounds indicated a strange vehicle at that time. Moreover, Rocco confirmed his daughter, but no second witness. In the summary report, Trost wrote, contradictions between witness statements and reporter's description. Travel times and locations unverified. The next day, Trost presented the report to Chief Norton. He skimmed, tapped his pen on the desk a few times, then said these details not enough to determine crime. Norton ordered keeping the file as missing, cause unknown, stressing without bodies or crime traces, all hypothetical. Trost nodded, but inwardly uneasy. He thought of neighbor words, vehicle lights, strange mud tire tracks at the porch, nothing conclusive, but nothing voluntary departure either. He typed the final daily report, clipped the file, added brief note at page end. Need further verification on second vehicle and contacts with Rocco Devereaux. File signed by Norton, stored in initial reports for missing case hash, 74-197, closing the preliminary statement phase in the first week since Frank and Clara vanished. 2 days after completing initial statements, Hammond police officially launched the search. Chief Norton signed to mobilize support from Tangipahoa County Rescue and River Patrol units. A large map spread on the meeting room table marked search areas in red, entire 15-kilometer radius around Hammond, extending along the Tangipahoa River and southern low forest. Tasks divided into 4 teams, 1 scanning highways and residential, 1 exploring riverbank forest, 1 boating river checks, last gathering info at service facilities. Trost coordinated overall, reporting to Norton daily. First search morning, thick fog-covered roads. Rescue and police vehicles lined up leaving town center, with megaphones, walkie-talkies, spotlights, flyers with Marquette father-daughter photos. Locals stood on porches watching, some volunteering. They started from the small pine forest behind the Marquette home, along trails to the riverbank. Handheld lights scanned mud, where old tire and shoe marks remained, but unclear as rain washed most. Trost noted traces nearly erased, need temporary protection zone. River Patrol lowered motorboats, moving downstream, using hooks and nets in deep sections. After 6 continuous hours, no notable finds beyond driftwood and household trash. That afternoon, second search teams scanned the main road connecting Hammond and Old Industrial area where Frank worked. Gas stops, roadside stores, parking lots questioned. At Lafitte's fuel station 5 kilometers from Hammond, an employee clearly remembered Mr. Marquette stopped to fill up that evening as wind picked up. Receipt timed around 8:20, matching file estimates. This confirmed Frank still in Hammond area before vanishing. Trost recorded as last verifiable time mark. Third day, search expanded west to abandoned boat docks and old steel bridge over the river. Muddy and high water hindered movement. Rescue used probes and iron hooks scanning riverbed around bridge feet, while shore teams checked roadside dirt where people sometimes parked overnight. No truck tire traces or submerged objects. All results negative. Simultaneously, police checked town public lots and outbound roads. The only working security camera at the general store recorded up to about 8 p.m. before storm blackout, so no useful data. Norton ordered daily summary reports. Trost, with his suntanned face and voice hoarse from lack of sleep, sat at the desk in the duty room, typing the first summary. Day 3, no evidence or suspect vehicle recovered. No additional witnesses. Recommend expanding search to southern swamp area. The recommendation was approved that night. The next morning, the search party left Hammond early, heading to the Tangipahoa Swamp, a complex terrain with deep water and dense undergrowth. 2 aluminum skiffs were lowered into the water, each carrying 4 people. Trost went with the first team. The engine noise gradually faded into the fog, leaving only insect sounds and the light splash of paddles. Whenever the boat stopped, they used probes to check the muddy bottom, noting depth and any unusual objects. Many sections had thick mud mixed with rotten branches, causing the dragnets to snag repeatedly. Temperatures rose, the stench of stagnant water and swamp gas forcing many to turn back early. By the 5th day, the weather worsened. Sudden showers poured down, strong winds from the south whipping through, causing river waves and reducing visibility. Command had to suspend operations to avoid accidents. Boats were pulled ashore, equipment covered with tarps. On the way back, Trost watched the murky river churning, thinking how many traces could have been washed away by just a few rains. He quickly noted in his book, "Adverse weather, physical evidence easily destroyed. Need resurvey when conditions allow." On the last day of the week, the search was scaled down, mainly rescanning the area around the Marquette home and the 2 roads into town. Teams finished in the late afternoon. No vehicles, objects, or bodies were found. In the final report for this phase, Trost concluded, after 5 days of expanded search, no tangible traces of victims or vehicle. Last verified point remains Lafitte's fuel station. The report was signed by Norton before leaving the office that night, marking the end of the first search phase, a large-scale effort but with no specific results. With the search concluding without results, Trost returned to the Marquette family home to re-examine anything possibly overlooked. The ground was still damp after rain, the soil around the porch soft, clearly showing the tire tracks he had seen before. He compared the initial scene photos with the current state, realizing at least 2 different tire patterns, one with sparse cross grooves, matching Frank's truck model, and one with thicker, deeper tread, typical of a sedan or mid-size car. This confirmed another vehicle's presence at the scene on the night of the disappearance. Trost remeasured the distance between tracks, marked coordinates, then went back inside. Everything unchanged. The dinner table with dried food streaks, wall clock stopped at 10:40, curtains dried. But the wooden floor still had faint mud marks near the entrance. In the upstairs closet, he rechecked all personal items. Luggage still in place, suitcases in the corner, jackets and clothes neatly folded, nothing missing. On the desk, leather wallet, watch, vehicle papers, and Frank's ID were placed together, untouched. In the adjacent drawer, Trost found a small envelope with cash, roughly over $200, also intact. In Clara's room, toys scattered on the floor, bed neatly made, school books at the headboard, no signs the father and daughter prepared for a long trip. Trost stood quietly surveying the room, then noted in his book, no personal items taken, signs of intentional departure, none. That afternoon, he returned to the station, spreading all scene photos and search reports on the desk. The traces, when pieced together, formed a chain of contradictions. If Frank really drove his daughter somewhere, why was his vehicle missing while papers and money remained? If Maria was right that he just wanted a few days away, why leave no information or essentials? Trost sat before the Hammond map, marking possible routes out of town, but none explained the sudden vanishing. He stopped his pen, staring at the photo of the porch with the mud-caked red fabric scrap, the only remaining evidence. In a separate note, he wrote, "Likelihood of third party at scene high." Trost spent the evening compiling all data from the first week onward, drafting a 3-page internal report. In the conclusion, he stated clearly, scene shows signs of another vehicle. No evidence of voluntary departure, need to shift file to criminal investigation to preserve evidence. He took the report to Norton's office, left it on the desk with photos and supplemental notes. The chief read slowly, silent for minutes. When setting the file down, he just shook his head slightly. "No bodies, no crime traces," he said calmly. "If we send to prosecutors now, they'll return it for lack of basis. We can't call this criminal just for a few tire tracks." Trost stayed silent, but his eyes held firm. He knew Norton wasn't wrong procedurally, but years of experience made him uneasy. Something about that house, in the overly neat details, felt staged. Absolute absence of traces was sometimes the clearest trace. He retrieved the report original, said briefly, "I'll keep it for additions if needed." Norton nodded, signaling the end. That night, Trost sat alone in the small office behind evidence storage, flipping through developed Polaroids. Desk lamp light reflected on the stained photos. In the corner of the porch photo, he noticed what he'd missed, a shoe print overlapping old mud, heading toward the road. This didn't match Frank's shoe sample, larger by at least one size. He pulled a pencil, sketched the outline quickly, noted below, "Large men's shoe, does not match victim data." Before leaving, Trost copied all scene reports, supplements and photos into a separate envelope, marked personal copy. He locked the drawer, put the envelope in his briefcase, took it home. On the official file submitted upward, only Chief Norton's conclusion remained: missing persons, no basis to determine crime. Continue monitoring and await new information. The line was red-stamped, confirming the case's temporary status. But for Trost, it had crossed the line of an ordinary missing persons case. In his mind, the tire tracks under the rain remained etched, like an unanswered question. 1 week after Norton rejected the criminal investigation proposal, the search was redeployed under supplemental expanded search scope. The decision followed, Louisiana State Rescue agreeing to provide vehicles and personnel. This time, the target was the lower Tangipahoa River, where water flowed into vast swamp with narrow, deep, dark channels. Per topographic maps, this was the closest area where a vehicle leaving Hammond south could vanish with few traces. A temporary command post was set up on a clearing near the old iron bridge, with tents, generators, and spread maps. Trost coordinated with the state rescue captain for the main search zone, while other units scanned both banks. First morning, river fog was so thick, visibility was under 20 meters. 2 motorboats and 1 rubber raft were launched, each with 3 people. Trost joined the first group, carrying GPS, binoculars, and old maps, marking unusual depths. The water was thick mud, covered in floating debris and rotten branches. Engine noise faded as boats moved slowly mid-river, only paddle splashes remaining. They split to scan with simple sonar along the riverbed, marking suspect large object areas. Twice the device signaled, but nets pulled up only sunken trunks and rotted wood. Trost noted, no large metal objects within 200 m radius. Water depth, 2.3 m, limited visibility. Third day, the team shifted south, where the river spilled into the vast Tangipahoa swamp. Water here was murky, covered in thick algae with a fishy smell. One shore team probed reeds with poles. At noon, under harsh sun, an officer found a strange object about 50 meters from the water's edge. A child's white shoe darkened with mud, torn laces, small size. The size matched Clara Marquette's shoe type in the ID report. Trost personally checked. Wearing nylon gloves, he picked it up, examining the sole rubber worn, edges frayed. He sealed it in a bag, coded 74B. Photographed the discovery spot. However, with no special markings or initials, owner identification was nearly impossible. Scene report noted, evidence similar to child shoe, insufficient info to confirm victim relation. 2 days later, the second boat team surveying a kilometer away salvaged a metal gas cap floating in algae. It matched the size of 1970s Chevrolet truck tanks, same as Frank's, but common design. Inconclusive. Trost sealed it, coded 74C, sent to tech. That day, the shore team found a charred 20 centimeters metal piece in mud and roots. Preliminary analysis showed oxidation and black soot, but no identifiable part. All 3 items were separately documented, transferred to county storage same day. Weather turned harsh by weekend. Sudden rain, rising river, strong currents made boating dangerous. One rescue skiff nearly capsized in waves. Norton ordered river operations suspended, switching to state police helicopter reconnaissance. 2 morning flights recorded swamp images, but found no unusual objects. In the daily report, Trost wrote dryly, terrain too complex for full scan. Rain and strong currents alter natural scene. Second week, river levels dropped, but scattered rain continued. Thin mud and disturbed vegetation made searching nearly pointless. Tech took evidence samples for lab checks. Results, the shoe long submerged, no DNA or fabric traces. Gas cap, no serial or markings. Charred metal, common alloy. No direct evidence linking any to the Marquette disappearance. The final summary meeting was in the command tent. The search map was covered in red pen lines crisscrossing forests and river bends. Trost reported briefly, concluding all recovered evidence insufficient to confirm missing persons relation. Norton read the report, signed, sent to headquarters. In the final note, he added bold text. Tangipahoa Swamp Search Report, evidence insufficient for conclusion. Day 14, heavy rain returned. Swamp access roads flooded, skiffs pulled ashore, equipment boxed for return to Hammond. Trost walked the area one last time, looking at the gray churning water. Cold wind, reeds bent low, the swamp returning to initial silence. As rescue vehicles left, the temporary flagpole at command fell, its rope still swaying lightly. 2 weeks of searching brought no answers, only more questions and 3 unnamed evidence items in storage. The operation officially ended that late afternoon, recorded in the file with a brief summary. After 14 days expanded search, no viable traces found. Operation suspended due to adverse weather. After the search ended without results, Trost refocused on human details, especially anomalies in Maria Marquette's statement. Her report of the disappearance night that she was in Baton Rouge with her father, Rocco Devereaux, remained the only verifiable piece and the one he doubted most. In internal files, Rocco was described as a freelance river transport businessman, sounding legitimate but raising questions for Trost. He searched East Baton Rouge criminal database and found Rocco arrested in 1968 for transport contract fraud, suspected of smuggling via the Mississippi River Road. The case was suspended for lack of evidence, but old reports still noted his ties to private transport and river labor groups. Trost noted in the margin, subject has complex social ties, prior criminal history, needs monitoring. He spent 3 consecutive days in Baton Rouge digging deeper. In the northern part of the city, Rocco's house was a low brick villa set apart, with an iron fence and a large yard. Trost observed from afar, noting not much vehicle traffic, mostly an old black Cadillac and a small truck used for hauling goods. Through a local mail carrier, he learned Rocco currently ran no transport company in his name, but still consulted for small commercial boat owners. Rumors in the area said he had ties to unregistered freight boat operators. To Trost, these scattered bits made Maria's statement more dubious. If she was truly at her father's that night, Rocco was the only one who could confirm it, and the sole witness had a fraud record. On the 4th day, Trost met the Devereaux family housekeeper, a middle-aged woman named Eloise, who had worked for them over 10 years. He introduced himself as an investigator reviewing the Hammond missing persons file and gently asked about the evening of July 3rd. Eloise was cautious at first, but assured the information was internal only. She slowly recounted, "That night Miss Maria arrived late, probably after midnight. I heard the car while cleaning the living room. When she came in, her dress was wet and muddy, with a strong smoke smell, like burning wood or gasoline. She said briefly road flooded, then went straight upstairs. Early morning, before Mr. Rocco woke, she had left." Trost recorded the full account, had Eloise signed the confirmation. She signed, then added, "I don't want any part in this, but since you asked, I'll tell the truth. I'd never seen her come back like that." Trost returned to the hotel, reread Maria's statement, and cross-checked times. If Eloise was right, Maria couldn't have been in Baton Rouge before midnight, meaning most of the evening she wasn't where she claimed. He wrote in his book, "Time discrepancy at least 3 hours. Need to verify route between Hammond and Baton Rouge." However, to get a warrant for the Devereaux home or vehicles, he needed direct evidence, a physical item or second witness. For now, all suspicions were just inference. The next day, Trost contacted the Department of Transportation for vehicles registered to Rocco. Results: 2. A 1969 Cadillac and a 1972 GMC small truck, dark green. This truck's tire size matched the strange tracks Trost found at the Marquette porch. He felt the details starting to connect, but still missing the final proof. He presented the findings to Norton, requesting a vehicle inspection warrant. Norton listened, frowned. "Can't get a search warrant on a housekeeper's word. He has a fraud record, not violence. Need more basis." The response disappointed but didn't surprise Trost. That evening, he finalized a separate report to the Tangipahoa District Attorney's Office, attaching copies of Eloise's statement, Rocco's prior record, and vehicle lookup results. In the conclusion, Trost wrote, "Inconsistencies in witness Maria Marquette's statement. Likelihood of third-party involvement. Recommend considering search warrant for Rocco Devereaux vehicles and property." The report was sent official mail, stamped, received by the DA's office the next morning. A week passed, no response. Trost called twice. Both times told the file was under supplemental review. He knew that meant it would sit on a desk until someone filed it away. In his duty log, he wrote the month's final line. No progress. Witness statement not further reviewed. No search possible. Rocco Devereaux's suspicions unverified for now. Trost closed the book, leaned back in his chair, eyes toward the window. Outside, early season rain fell on Baton Rouge. Thick and heavy, like the night Frank Marquette vanished. He thought of the muddy wet dress and smoke smell the housekeeper mentioned, the dark green small truck in the Devereaux garage, then the deep tire tracks in the soil before the Hammond porch. Every detail lay scattered, enough to form a picture, but not enough to assemble. He knew without DA response, all suspicions would be buried in the files. Still, he kept a full copy of all documents, marked on the cover in small letters. Devereaux, separate monitoring. Late August, 1974, nearly 2 months since Frank and Clara Marquette vanished, the investigation neared total stalemate. Trost's final reports were sent with no DA response, no new physical evidence. Search recovered samples, the child's shoe, gas cap, charred metal fragment, were all concluded insufficient basis to link to disappearance. County Tech confirmed no fingerprints, fibers, or biological traces of legal value. Swamp humidity had destroyed most evidence preservation potential. The case file thinned weekly in meetings as every lead hit a dead end. Trost persistently re-examined all records, comparing statements and scene photos. He noted Maria's timeline didn't match her father's, especially the unaccounted 3-hour gap. The strange porch tire tracks, housekeeper's muddy dress, and smoke smell account all formed a clear chain of suspicion. But to superiors, it was just unverifiable coincidence. When Trost presented the final analysis, Chief Gary Norton read it once, set it down, said slowly, "We can't keep an open file forever on guesses. No bodies, no crime." In the early September summary meeting, Norton officially closed the case. His voice even and dry, like reading an admin notice. Marquette family disappearance classified missing, unresolved. A red stamp hit the cover of file hash 74-197, confirming investigation end. Evidence was resealed, sent to state storage in Baton Rouge. Scene photos, search reports, witness statements stacked into a file under half an inch thick, tied with cloth string. It all became a number in the unresolved cases catalog, among hundreds of other missing persons in state stats. Trost sat silent during the decision, hands clasped. He knew Norton wasn't negligent, just a by-the-book officer demanding concrete proof. But in Hammond, the unprovable was often shelved, and silence easily filled truth's void. After the meeting, Trost took copies of scene photos, personal notes, and the rejected report, neatly into a large envelope. He wrote in the corner, "Case hash 74-197 personal copy." The next day, he returned to the Marquette home one last time before file handover. The house empty, doors sealed, dust thinly coated furniture, porch light wiring cut. Trost stood at the threshold, looking out to the dirt road into the woods, where tire tracks once clearly marked the mud. Now the ground hard and dry, only patchy moss. He wondered if anyone else saw what he saw that night. The staged neatness, the suspicious silence, or if it all lived only in his instinct. In his notebook, he wrote the final line. No evidence, but clear signs of concealment. Criminal act possibility, not ruled out. Mid-September, Trost submitted a transfer request to St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office, citing personal reasons. The file was quickly approved. The day he left Hammond, light rain fell. The duty car drove through the wet downtown, past the foggy Tangipahoa River bank, once the focus of 2 fruitless search weeks. He didn't look back. In the trunk, the envelope with photos and personal notes was tightly rubber-banded, marked in small handwriting. It would follow him for years, like a crack never sealed. At headquarters, the Marquette file was moved to state storage in Baton Rouge. The archivist slapped a new label on the spine, hash 74-197. Marquette, Frank and Clara, missing unresolved. The file was placed on a steel shelf between 1973 and 1975 cases, then locked with an old padlock. In the storage catalog, the brief note read only 2 words, "No further evidence," and from that moment, the Marquette family disappearance officially fell into silence. After file hash 74-197 was transferred to state storage in Baton Rouge, the Marquette family disappearance gradually faded from Hammond residents' memory. In the following years, the town expanded north. The 1974 flooded forests leveled for new subdivisions. The dirt road to their old house was paved, then given a different name on maps. Only longtime residents vaguely recalled the mechanic and his little daughter who vanished after the storm. But that memory faded with time, becoming a retold story over coffee or in local history classes. At the investigative level, the Marquette file was marked inactive, never re-examined. For 3 decades, the fading paper files lay untouched on iron shelves in the Central Archive. The cover faded, the red ink on missing, unresolved blurred. New officers barely knew of the case, except occasionally seeing code hash 74-197 in periodic inventory lists. No further evidence sought, no reopening requests, no family inquiries. The silence stretched until the case nearly never existed. Scott Trost left Hammond, worked 20 more years in St. Tammany before retiring. He lived alone in a small house near Slidell, growing fruit trees and occasionally fishing Lake Pontchartrain. Though he never mentioned Marquette, in his home safe, he kept the large sealed envelope labeled Case Hash 74-197, personal copy. Inside were yellowed Polaroids, copied scene reports, statement notes, and a few old papers on the 1974 summer storm. He kept them not hoping to solve it someday, but unable to discard what haunted him for years, the sense that in Hammond that year, something was buried with the Tangipahoa River mud. Trost retired in 1998, drawing state pension. Life after was quiet, days in fixed routines, morning coffee, local paper, weekend market. Yearly, he donated to the Retired Officers Fund and attended colleague memorials. In the parish unsolved cases list, Marquette was never mentioned again. To authorities, just an old missing persons file among hundreds. To Trost, an unfilled void. By the early 2000s, digital storage and DNA analysis spread in southern U.S. states. The Louisiana State Police launched a special project to digitize and re-examine cold cases before 1980. The goal was to scan all remaining evidence for new tech applicability. The project spanned years. Due to volume and inconsistent county storage, many files damaged, moldy, or lost to weather and disasters. By 2010, the program entered full inventory phase. State tech teams moved between old archives, sorting and entering data. In Baton Rouge, the Tangipahoa area storage was first opened. In the Missing Persons, 1970-1979 catalog, technician Evelyn Barker found file hash 74-197 still sealed and never digitized. Opening the attached evidence list, she saw an envelope coded 74 evidence marked by Officer Scott Trost nearly 40 years prior. The envelope still had red wax seal and faded signature. Per protocol, the sample was temporarily moved to intact samples, priority check. In the June 15, 2010 inventory report, the final line read briefly, Old Marquette sample added to supplemental DNA testing list. No one on the tech team then knew this disappearance once consumed an investigator's lifetime. To them, just another old file to digitize, like hundreds of nameless missing cases across the state. Elsewhere, in his small Slidell home, Trost, then over 70, sat by the window reading the paper, still folding it precisely, placing his coffee cup in the same spot. He didn't know that in Baton Rouge, someone had just reopened the file with his 1974 signature. And among those yellowed pages, the mud-caked red fabric scrap, the first and only evidence he collected on that rainy Hammond night, remained perfectly sealed, about to begin a new journey under technology he never used in his career. August 2010, in the Louisiana State Police Forensic Lab in Baton Rouge, technicians began opening priority, cold case evidence envelopes. On the cold stainless table, dozens of files lined by year. When reaching envelope 74, Evelyn Barker, the lead technician, noted it stood out, wax seal intact, faded handwritten signature, S. Trost, and note, collected front porch, May 7, 1974. Per protocol, she photographed the evidence state before breaking the seal. The wax cracked lightly, inside an old pale yellow nylon bag, holding a small fabric piece, darkened and stiffened with age. Under the light, the center had a darker stain, edges deep brown red. Evelyn noted in the report, possible blood adherence, dry sample, never previously tested. She transferred the sample to DNA analysis. The process began by cutting a tiny fabric section for biological extraction. Though nearly 40 years old, new ancient DNA techniques allowed micro-recovery from dried blood. After 24 hours, initial results appeared on screen. The DNA did not match victims Frank or Clara Marquette, references from old database samples. Evelyn cross-checked the expanded civilian DNA system, storing samples from prior offenders or state legal contacts. When the software finished, the text was clear: match found. Maria Devereaux probability, 99.87%. She stared at the result, rechecked the file code. Maria Devereaux, the name in the 1974 witness and initial reporter list. In the system, her DNA was stored from a 1999 Baton Rouge hospital record after a traffic accident. Cross-match was perfect with the fabric trace. Evelyn printed the results, signed, submitted to the lab chief. The next day, an internal meeting was held at State Police. Cold Case Director Anthony Heller personally reviewed the report. All agreed this was significant. The only remaining Marquette evidence held DNA from the person who claimed no presence at the scene that night. Heller ordered full original file re-examination. Archivists brought the thin file with old label #74197. Marquette, Frank, and Clara, missing unresolved. Pages yellowed but clear with Officer Scott Trost's notes. Red fabric mud-caked, collected front porch, possible evidence. Below, another hand, insufficient basis. Store. Heller skimmed, paused at Maria and Rocco Devereaux's statements. Both claimed Baton Rouge that evening. No other witnesses. Heller ordered a summary report direct to the Louisiana State Police Director's office. In Evelyn's draft, she summarized DNA on evidence 74, or, collected at Marquette home scene, confirmed match to Maria Devereaux, disappearance reporter. Error margin under 0.2%. Sample well preserved, no contamination. The report was sent electronically and hard copy via urgent official mail. The following week, State Criminal Investigation verified with 2 independent labs. Second and third tests confirmed absolute match. No authenticity doubts. Director Heller signed the decision to submit reopen file #74197 to the State Attorney General per dormant case crime indication rules. The 8-page petition attached evidence photos, DNA results, and 1974 original reports. September 14, 2010, document LBI. 2010-94. A was signed, confirming file #74197 reopened for criminal investigation under Louisiana state authority. In internal records, case status changed from unresolved to reopened, active. Temporarily assigned lead, Anthony Heller, Cold Case Division Chief. Immediately after, Heller sent official notice to Tangipahoa Storage, requesting handover of all evidence and files, including scene photos, interview transcripts, and supplemental samples. When storage staff opened the cabinet, they found clipped inside the original file an old Polaroid set and Scott Trost's handwritten report with a blurred blue ink note. No evidence, but clear signs of concealment. The words faint but legible, like a small reminder from an unclosed past. In the following weeks, the technician team led by Evelyn Barker completed resealing the sample, backing up DNA data, and transferring the entire file to the Cold Case Handling Division of the Louisiana State Police. At the end of the monthly summary report, Evelyn wrote in blue pen, Sample 74R, originating evidence. File #74197, reactivated. In the updated internal catalog dated September 30, 2010, the Marquette case was placed among dozens of other 1970s dormant files. But in Evelyn's note corner next to reopened, 3 small handwritten words, almost a private whisper. Traces resurface. By early October 2010, after administrative procedures were complete, the case was officially handed over to the Cold Case Unit in New Orleans. The assigned lead was Inspector Tony Foray, a 49-year-old veteran investigator who had handled many long-standing cases in the American South. Foray was known for his caution, reticence, always starting work by rereading every line of old files before contacting witnesses. Upon receiving the Marquette file, he immediately noticed the anomaly. It was too thin, under 40 pages, mostly procedural reports. The outer cover had yellowed, paper edges peeling, and the red unresolved stamp still prominent. Trost's scene report section was only 8 pages, while the witness statement list named 8 people, but only 4 pages remained. Some sections torn or noted missing. Under scene photos, only 4 blurry, moisture-damaged Polaroids, insufficient to reconstruct the space. 4A immediately requested archives to verify where the missing documents went. The reply after 2 days, unknown, originals possibly damaged in the 1983 flood when Tangipahoa storage flooded. He ordered full backups of existing files, then personally reviewed every detail. In Maria and her father Rocco Devereaux's statements, he spotted clear contradictions unnoted by 1974 investigators, differing Baton Rouge arrivals' departure times, no independent witnesses, weather descriptions mismatched with state meteorological records. 4A marked those sections in red pen, margin note. No cross-verification, need comparison. Reading Chief Norton's 1974 conclusion, he paused long. The line, no criminal basis, made him frown. He understood the era's context, with limited forensics and disappearances often seen as voluntary, but failing to pursue further despite odd physical signs at the scene, was unacceptable by modern standards. 4A decided to find the original handling officer for clarity. From old personnel records, he tracked retired officer Scott Trost, now living in Slidell. A call was made late month. Trost's voice over the line slow and hoarse, but upon hearing file hash 74197, he went silent long, then said, "I thought that case was buried." "You're reopening?" 4A explained the new DNA results. On the other end, Trost said briefly, "The red fabric." 4A confirmed it was evidence 74 RAR. A long pause, then Trost, "I knew it meant something back then. But when I pushed for criminal investigation, they told me to stop." 2 weeks later, 4A drove to meet Trost at his home. The small house near Lake Pontchartrain was full of old files. Trost, now over 70, still had the calm demeanor of a career officer. He poured coffee, placed before 4A a thick envelope, faded cover label. Case hash 74197 personal copy. Inside were original report copies, full scene photos, and handwritten notes. 4A recognized documents missing from the official file. Porch tire track photos, measurement sketches, and the Devereaux housekeeper Eloise's statement. "I kept them knowing they'd be needed someday," Trost said, voice low. "That year I was ordered to stop. They said no crime, just 2 people gone." 4A nodded, flipped each photo, noted sequences, and requested copies. Back in New Orleans, he immediately reported this to superiors. The existence of off-file documents necessitated full re-examination. State police leadership approved a 6-person task force named Cold Case Task Force Marquette. 4A led Evelyn Barker, the DNA discoverer, joined for forensics. Others, 2 forensic specialists, 1 document expert, 1 mapping technician. In the first meeting, 4A spread all photos and documents on the table. He pointed to Trost's 1974 note, no evidence, but clear signs of concealment. Then said, "That's our starting point." The team cataloged all existing evidence, sorted by origin and collection year. They planned retesting mud samples, shoe prints, charred metal, and reanalyzing all statements for contradictions. 4A also requested the state attorney's office for legal records on Rocco Devereaux, 1960s, 1970s fraud and river transport contracts. Late December, after data backup completion, 4A wrote in his duty log, "File 74 balls 197 officially reactivated. Phase 1 goal, full 1974 document review. Identify discrepancies, reconstruct event sequence. Focus Maria and Rocco Devereaux." The line in blue ink, even and firm. The Marquette file, once deemed an unsolvable disappearance for 35 years, now sat on his desk, entering its second investigation phase. This time, with full 21st century tools. Early January 2011, the Marquette cold case team began evidence re-examination. In Baton Rouge State Storage, foray and forensic technician Evelyn Barker directly oversaw opening the 1,974 sealed evidence box. Small iron box, old label hash 74197, evidence box 3, signed by Chief Norton and Louisiana State Seal. After seal check and protocol photos, Evelyn used a scalpel to cut old tape, lifted the lid. Inside, evidence wrapped in parchment, layers hand-numbered. Foray gloved, carefully separated packages. 3 main items per original catalog, a pair of yellow rubber gloves, a small glass shard, a dull silver 1973 coin. All discolored but labeled 74 G, 74 coin. Before analysis, Foray reread Trost's original report. Item 74 G described rubber gloves, collected kitchen area, near sink. 74K, broken glass shard. Under back porch, 74 coin. Coin, near dinner table, small blood streak. These details caught his eye, as Norton's final report mentioned neither gloves nor coin. Possibly overlooked in 1974 for lack of ID value. But with modern DNA, potential keys. Evelyn placed each item on the stainless table, used fluorescent scanner for biological traces. On gloves, 74 G, scanner showed 2 faint glow areas inside, skin contact zones. She swabbed epithelial cells from both gloves, with sterile cotton, sealed in new tubes. Glass shard, 74K, under microscope. A small dark streak, possibly dried blood, sampled additionally. Coin 74 coin, processed separately, with cyanocrylate fuming for fingerprints. When white vapor coated the surface, fingerprint ridges appeared clearly on the edge. Evelyn photographed with high-res camera, sent to identification. 2 weeks later, first analysis results returned. DNA lab report stated, biological sample from 74 G matches 2 individuals, 1 female, 1 male. Female DNA matches Maria Devereaux profile, 99.92% probability. Male DNA matches Rocco Devereaux, 99.85% probability. Foray read silently. He paused seconds, then turned the page. Report continued. No victim Frank or Clara Marquette DNA on item, meaning the gloves belonged to the Devereaux father-daughter, used in the victim's home, a detail both denied in 1974 statements, claiming no presence at scene. For 74K, the dark streak was mud-clay mix. No biology, likely rain carried. But coin 74 coin brought another find. Fingerprint report, ridges matched Frank Marquette's, stored from 1973 driver's license. Notably, the dried blood position next to the print suggested the coin was held when injured. Blood spatter analysis, dropped from about 1 meter height, angle under 45 degrees, suggesting the holder was seated or kneeling. Evelyn presented results in the cold case meeting. All agreed this was the first direct evidence of at least 2 others in the home that night. Foray ordered cross-verification at an independent Baton Rouge lab to rule out error. 3 days later, results confirmed perfect match. He added to the investigation file, internal memo. Evidence 74K confirms Maria and Rocco Devereaux DNA. No contamination. Error under 0.1%. Evidence 74 coin bears victim Frank Marquette fingerprint, proving his presence at scene during conflict or injury. Foray requested further analysis on glove use in heavy lifting or cleaning. Forensic expert noted fingertip areas worn smooth, consistent with gripping hard objects or scrubbing. Inside, microscopic glass dust, same type as Marquette home windows. Preliminary report, signs gloves used in cleaning or moving objects at scene. That evening, Foray sat in the empty office, enlarged photos of gloves, coin, and glass before him. He connected data, victim fingerprint, Devereaux DNA, item locations in the house. The scene picture emerged, gloves not victims, but of 2 who claimed absence. He opened his duty log, wrote brief conclusion, confirmed, Devereaux father-daughter, at scene night of July 3, 1974. Involvement level direct. The next day, results were officially stamped and entered into the state police electronic system. The final memo note, in bold, evidence supports presence of Maria and Rocco Devereaux at the scene on the night of disappearance. After forensic results confirmed the Devereaux' presence at the scene, Inspector Tony Foray shifted investigation to finances, the area often hiding clearest motives in long-dormant disappearances. He began reviewing all Marquette family bank and insurance records from 1973-1976. Using Louisiana State Finance's digitized system, most old accounts closed, but via Frank's Social Security number, he found a Gulf Mutual Insurance life policy from 1972 worth $10,000, a significant sum then. Sole beneficiary, Maria Marquette. Foray formally requested payout records from the company. A week later he received documents including a claim dated March 1976. 2 years after Frank and daughter were declared missing. It stated, beneficiary Maria Marquette, request disbursement after court confirms prolonged missing status. The $10,000 was paid by check, cashed at Hammond National Bank branch. Notably, attached was a missing confirmation, signed by Rocco Devereaux as witness. Foray stared long at the bold blue ink. Rocco had no legal reason to sign for his son-in-law unless directly involved in the paperwork. From there Foray requested transaction histories for both. 1970s bank data not fully digital, but central bank microfilm copies remained. A finance specialist helped enlarge 1976 deposit slips. In April that year, Rocco Devereaux deposited $9,850 cash into his First River Bank personal account, exactly 3 weeks after Maria's insurance payout. Foray noted, timing matches, direct link likely. Next, he compared Frank Marquette's original insurance signature with one on a 1974 contract amendment confirmation copy near the disappearance. The second signature, clearly different pen pressure, more slanted, final stroke stiff, lacking right-handed traits. Foray sent both to state document forensics. 3-day report concluded, 1974 document signature highly likely forgery, does not match Frank Marquette's handwriting. This meant someone signed on Frank's behalf for the insurance file right before he vanished, possibly to adjust payout terms for death or disappearance. Foray searched the file appendix and found a small note on the back. Witness signature, R-Day abbreviation, matching Devereaux. In the internal memo, he wrote, confirmed signature forgery and invalid certification. Witness from beneficiary's family, clear financial motive. After nearly 2 hours, the screen showed anomalous feedback at about 3.5 meters depth. The jagged reflection signal indicated a large metal structure, rectangular box shape. Evelyn Barker, operating the equipment, viewed the data and said, this reflectivity isn't rock, it's steel or aluminum. Could be a vehicle body. Foray ordered the area cordoned, stakes placed. The digging team was mobilized, using portable mud pumps to drain around the site. After nearly 5 hours, the mud surface released a faint oil smell, and silver paint flakes appeared first. A technician whispered, Chevrolet, 73 model. Foray stood by, watching the faded C10 emerge on the rusted body panel, matching Frank Marquette's owned model. To avoid evidence damage, they stopped, set temporary barriers, and filmed the entire process. Forensics continued manual scooping with plastic shovels, gradually exposing the nearly intact but charred frame. Exterior deformed, right front door collapsed. Windshield shattered, interior filled with mud and ash. When flipping the driver's seat iron frame, they found thick ash mixed with small white bone fragments the size of fingertips. Evelyn used tweezers to pick each, placed in stainless trays. Another fragment curved, thin like part of the lower jaw. Nearby, in the crevice between the back seat and door, she found a small round silver item, a child's necklace with a heart pendant engraved with C. Though faded, the engraving was clearly readable. Foray bent to examine the evidence, silent. He requested close-up photos and coded the necklace 74 new 1, bone fragments 74 new 2. Everything collected, wrapped in moisture-proof bags, sealed per protocol. As the team expanded around the vehicle, they found more curved metal scraps like remaining fuel tank parts and hood, all charred, stuck with ash and mud, suggesting intense fire before water coverage. By afternoon, the vehicle body was pulled from the mud, revealing dark gray oxidized steel. Foray noted a round dent on the side panel, about 2 centimeters diameter, charred surface. He noted, possible from heat impact or metal-piercing bullet. Mud samples around the area taken for gasoline or accelerant traces. The entire process filmed in high definition for the report. As dusk fell over the swamp, the 1973 Chevrolet was secured on a specialized trailer, covered with tarp, and transported to the Baton Rouge Examination Center. Foray lingered before the still bubbling mud pit, watching GPS markers blink in the fog. He knew this moment marked the first time in 37 years the object tied to Frank and Clara's disappearance was seen. In the scene notebook he wrote quickly, "Discovered Chevrolet C10 truck, 1973 production, burned out, buried in Tangipahoa River mud. Inside, human bone fragments and child's necklace engraved too. Relation probability to Marquette case, very high." The next day the vehicle was placed in a covered preservation area, all access blocked. New evidence transferred separately to Central Forensics. Foray completed a 6-page summary report, sent immediately to Director Heller. The conclusion stated, metal object under mud identified as victim Frank Marquette's vehicle, recovered human remains, and personal item engraved too. DNA testing required for identity confirmation. Signing the report, Foray paused his pen momentarily. He understood this excavation's meaning. What were once suspicions in Trost's notes were now tangible evidence. Night fell, reeds around the Tangipahoa swamp fogged again, but on Foray's New Orleans desk, the Marquette file now had a new bold line on the first page. Vehicle discovery, physical evidence confirming primary scene. Evidence from the Tangipahoa River area was transferred to the Louisiana State Forensic Center the following week. Inspector Tony Foray and technician Evelyn Barker directly oversaw unsealing. The 1973 Chevrolet truck was placed in a covered examination bay, entire surface scanned for mechanical and chemical traces. Mud washed off sectionally with neutral solution to preserve burn marks. As damp soil was removed from the cab, technicians found a small cylindrical metal object wedged under the seat frame. Evelyn used tweezers to extract, cleaned with ethanol solution, noted in the report, .30 is 06 Springfield cartridge casing, Winchester Mark. It was a common long-range hunting round and the type Rocco Devereaux registered ownership of in 1972. Concurrently, the bone analysis team began examining the recovered remains. Total 11 fragments, including lower jaw, forearm bone, and smaller pelvis and skull pieces. Long mud submersion discolored the structure, but dried marrow inside retained sufficient nuclear DNA for testing. Evelyn sampled from 2 different fragments to avoid error. 3 days later, initial results showed DNA matching the Marquette lineage, stored in civilian database via a living Hammond relatives file. Cross-referencing gender and genetics, the Forensic Institute concluded, one set male adult, matching victim Frank, the other juvenile female characteristics, highly likely daughter Clara. Analysis continued in the truck bed, where burn concentration was strongest. Chemists detected light hydrocarbon residues in soil and frame, characteristic of gasoline oil mix. This proved the fire was not natural electrical, but accelerant caused. Rescanning the right side metal, they noted 2 round penetration holes with indented rims, created by force from outside in. Metal around the edges charred black, slight rippling, clear medium-range bullet signs. Estimated diameter 7.6, 2 mm, perfect match to the .30 06 casing found in the vehicle. The examination report stated, body dents match .30 06 bullet characteristics, firing direction from outside into cab. Burn and smoke signs indicate vehicle arson post-shooting to destroy evidence. Foray read the preliminary conclusion, paused at the .30 Munder 06 Springfield note, and smiled coldly. He recalled Trost's 1974 file, noting Rocco Devereaux has legal hunting license registration. Meaningless then, now a direct link between suspect and scene. Further checking the floor before the driver's seat, the team found mechanical traces on the steering column, metal bent left, indicating strong impact as the seated person slumped. Combined with bone fragment positions and the bloodied coin with Frank's fingerprint from the house, 4A inferred the sequence: victim shot in or near the vehicle, then pushed into mud and burned. He wrote in his duty log, "Scene structure consistent with evidence disposal post-crime. No accident or spontaneous burn signs." Mud samples around the excavation site were analyzed for chemical composition. Results showed high lead, copper and zinc concentrations, corresponding to post-explosion bullet residue metal. Small metal scraps around the body dents also showed rifling marks from a Remington 742 barrel, a very common semi-automatic, and per Baton Rouge police archives, Rocco purchased a Remington 742 in April 1972, serial 42108. 4A compiled all data: bullet type, shooting traces, victim DNA, accelerant, burn location. Each result reinforced the same scenario. He drafted a 26-page comprehensive report titled Forensic Analysis, Case 74-197. In the conclusion, he stated clearly: 1. 2 biological individuals identified, adult male and juvenile female, same bloodline as Marquette family. Cause of death: gunshot injury. .3006 caliber, direction from outside in. 3. Burn scene: confirmed gasoline arson, purpose evidence destruction. 4. Likely weapon: Remington 742, .3006 caliber, registered to Rocco Devereaux. The report was submitted for signing on March 28, 2011, with signatures from 3 independent examination chiefs. 4A read it once more, then signed in the right corner. He said nothing, just folded the file and sent it via official mail to the Louisiana State Attorney's Office. In the attached transfer form he wrote briefly, "Forensic report confirms victims Frank and Clara Marquette died from gunshot, vehicle burned for disposal. Evidence basis allows criminal prosecution. As the file transport vehicle left the examination area, light rain fell in Baton Rouge. 4A stood under the eaves watching, rain pattering on the concrete. For nearly 40 years, that disappearance was labeled cause undetermined. Now, through technology and persistence, the truth finally emerged clearly in every forensic report line. A father and child shot, a truck burned and sunk, and a plot once thought buried under Tangipahoa River mud." In early April 2011, after the forensic report was accepted, Inspector Tony 4A devoted all time to compiling the full hash 74-197 case file. He hung a Hammond and Tangipahoa River area map on the wall, pinning red markers connecting every timeline point from the rainy evening of July 3, 1974, to the burned vehicle discovery. On the desk, dozens of documents stacked in 3 groups: scene, evidence, forensics, DNA, finance, insurance. 4A reviewed each part, reconstructing events by logically connecting data in sequence. All that was scattered, for 37 years now fit into a seamless chain. Per his reconstruction, that rainy night Frank and daughter Clara left the go-kart track for home after 9 p.m. They were unaware Rocco Devereaux was already in the area, using his dark green GMC small truck. The second porch tire tracks and large shoe prints were his. Based on forensics, 4A believed Rocco ambushed at the backyard, waiting for the pair's return. When they entered the house, a short confrontation occurred. Perhaps Frank spotted Rocco in the dark and resisted. The blood drop on the red fabric proved impact and injury at the porch. Frank was wounded, leaving the bloodied coin and handprint in the house. Afterward, per ballistic conclusions, Frank was shot with a Remington 742 rifle in .306 caliber, the type Rocco legally owned. The bullet pierced the vehicle body. The casing fell inside the cab, later found during excavation. Clara, in the passenger seat, most likely hit by a second bullet or died from heat when the vehicle was burned, as her DNA was identified on the same bone sample in the rear compartment. 4A noted in the report, time of death simultaneous, differing by minutes only, no survival signs. Regarding Maria's role, the financial event chain showed she not only knew, but aided concealment. In the 2 years after Frank's disappearance, Maria never requested additional police searches. Instead, she followed legal procedures to declare permanent missing, required for insurance payout. The altered insurance contract with Frank's forged signature and raw.dead abbreviation showed Rocco witnessed the process. 4A assessed Maria prepared the paperwork, Rocco executed the violence. Clear financial motive, the $10,000 insurance Maria received in 1976, matching Rocco's bank cash deposit weeks later. From the scene map and firing direction, 4A sketched the crime diagram. Frank's Chevrolet C10 parked close to the porch, nose toward the dirt road. Rocco positioned at the right front corner, where bullet penetration in the body was found. After shooting, he dragged Frank's body to the driver's seat, burned the vehicle with gasoline, then pushed it into the riverside mud. Lead particles and hydrocarbon traces in the soil confirmed on-site arson. Under the porch light, the red fabric scrap, possibly part of Rocco's jacket or a bloodied wipe rag, was left behind. The only evidence surviving nearly 4 decades. 4A added in the interpretation section, no accomplices beyond Maria. She was in Baton Rouge with her father the next morning, but DNA on evidence 74 proves her presence at the Marquette home earlier. Thus, Maria may have appeared in preparation or post-murder cleanup. The gloves bearing both DNAs showed joint scene handling. Fingertip wear on the gloves indicated scrubbing, matching Trost's report note, mud floor streaks wiped. That evening, 4A presented the reconstruction to the cold case team. On the projector, he pointed to each evidence item, red fabric scrap, rubber gloves, coin, DNA results, insurance contract, and finally the photo of the burned vehicle emerging from mud. He spoke slowly, almost to himself. Frank and his daughter returned home in the rain. The ambusher waited. After shooting them dead, the perpetrator burned the vehicle, buried it in mud. 2 years later, the wife legalized the deaths via insurance paperwork. The whole story enclosed in one family circle. No one in the room spoke. The next day, he finalized the comprehensive investigation report for the Louisiana State Attorney's Office. The 38-page document had 4 main sections: forensics, scene reconstruction, financial analysis, and criminal conduct conclusion. In the final part, 4A wrote, 1. Rocco Devereaux executed the killing of Frank and Clara Marquette using a Remington 742 hunting rifle, .30 Evrio 6 caliber. 2. Maria Devereaux indirect accomplice, aiding preparation and crime concealment, while benefiting from the insurance payout. 3. Disposal method, vehicle arson burial under Tangipahoa River mud. 4. Motive, financial gain and marital conflict. The report ended with a bold line, investigation conclusion, 2 victims murdered, vehicle burned for disposal, wife and her father accomplices in the crime. That same evening, 4A placed the report copy in a hard folder, sealed it, and signed for direct courier to the state police director. Signing the final confirmation, he looked up through the window, where Baton Rouge rain still fell steadily. In the quiet room, desk lamp light reflected on the old photo of Frank and Clara on the table, 2 faces still smiling in a backdrop closed by blood and fire. Below it, he wrote the final investigation log note, complete report transferred to state prosecutor. The truth finally has shape. After finalizing the comprehensive report and sending it to the state prosecutor, Inspector Tony 4A was granted authority for the investigation's final phase, cross-examining witness statements with forensic and financial results. On April 22, 2011, he signed official summons for both subjects, Maria Devereaux and Rocco Devereaux, to the Louisiana State Police Headquarters in Baton Rouge for interrogation. This was the first time in nearly 40 years both were directly recalled regarding Frank and Clara Marquette's disappearance. Maria arrived first, wearing a beige blouse, appearance still neat and cold. Beside her was her private attorney who represented the family in the 1976 insurance case. The interrogation room brightly lit, a recorder in the table center. Foray began calmly. We're reviewing a 1974 disappearance with new evidence found. You still remember that night clearly? Maria looked straight, answered softly. I've said all I know, nothing's changed. Foray nodded, then placed on the table photos of the red fabric scrap and gloves. Your DNA and your father's are here. How do you explain? She frowned slightly, spoke slowly. I lived there once. If traces, probably from before I left. Foray showed no reaction, just turned to another file page. Peer records. You moved out early 1973, over a year before the disappearance. Evidence collected at the rainy July 1974 scene. You sure you want to keep that answer? Maria silent seconds, then I don't remember clearly. Maybe I stopped by for old things. He let the silence linger, then asked, why didn't you join searches for your husband and daughter? I thought they left because of me. Frank said he wanted a life change. And you claimed insurance 2 years later? Maria looked down, hands clenched, then softly. That was my legal right. The interrogation lasted nearly 2 hours. Her every answer circled 3 phrases. Don't remember clearly. Nothing unusual. I followed regulations. Ending. Foray said. Only, we'll need to verify some timeline details about your Baton Rouge presence that night. 3 days later, he summoned Rocco Devereaux, the man over 78, large build, silver hair, still hoarse voice. He arrived half an hour late, no attorney. Sitting down, Rocco said, I got nothing to say, ask away. Foray started simply. Remember the evening of July 3rd, 1974. Rocco narrowed eyes. I was home watching baseball, raining. Sure you didn't leave Baton Rouge that night? Sure, I don't drive nights. Foray slid a printout. Bell South call log copy. Per recovered data, your home landline called a Hammond area line at 9:17 p.m. that night. Who'd you call? Rocco stared at the paper, eyes slightly squinting. Maybe wrong number. Lines were messy back then. The called number registered to Frank Marquette, Foray said. Explain. Rocco leaned back, arms crossed. I called him 'cause he owed me money. I didn't kill nobody. Foray didn't counter, just noted, then shifted. Remember the Remington 742 you bought in 1972? That gun's gone. Sold it long ago. Sale papers? No, hand to hand. Foray pulled from the file an evidence bag, placed on table, .3006 casing. We found this in Frank's vehicle, same caliber as your gun. Rocco leaned forward, dry laugh. 3006 everybody's got. You saying 'cause I hunted ducks in the bayou I shot people? Foray calm. No one's saying that, just why your DNA's in Frank's house. Rocco silent, eyes slowly shifting. He tapped fingers on the table then, I went there to clean. That house still had my daughter's stuff. Clean with gloves? Yeah, 'cause dirty. Interrogation lasted another hour. Rocco's answers aligned in intent with Maria's but contradicted on timeline details. Maria claimed at her father's that night, arriving after midnight. Rocco said she was home from 9. Foray noted each small discrepancy, red pen marks. Ending, he signaled recorder off, stood, looked straight at Rocco. You witnessed the 1976 insurance, signed confirming Frank missing. Now we have evidence Frank and Clara died by gunshot. Anything to add before I send the file to prosecutors? Rocco pursed lips, shrugged. Believe what you want, but I didn't shoot nobody. After both left headquarters, Foray sat alone. On the table, 2 new statements side by side, contradictions, prominent times, locations, reasons for Hammond presence. He tapped his pen on the file, then called Evelyn Barker. Verify old Bell South records for me. Need full call logs from the Devereaux home 2 days around July 3rd, 1974. 2 days later, Evelyn sent the report. Besides the 9:17 p.m. Hammond call, another at 6 a.m. next day from Baton Rouge to Hammond exchange, lasting 43 seconds. This connection only possible if the caller was in adjacent coverage, meaning Rocco left Baton Rouge overnight and returned before dawn. Foray read the verification. Thin smile. He typed a short memo to the state prosecutor. Subject statements contradictory. Telecom data confirms Rocco Devereaux's presence in Hammond area during murder time. Request temporary arrest warrants for investigation. Document signed 10:45 p.m., April 27, 2011. Below Foray's signature, final note 4 words, time to act. 3 days after the state prosecutor signed temporary arrest warrants, Inspector Tony Foray with investigators and local police executed a search of Rocco Devereaux's owned warehouse in Baton Rouge. It was a small shed, rusted tin walls, behind an old truck yard he rented since the 1970s. Rocco declared to authorities the warehouse only stored repair tools and transport supplies, but tax records showed no activity over 20 years. The search warrant executed morning of April 30, 2011, under federal prosecutor supervision. As the team broke the old iron door lock, musty smell mixed with oil smoke escaped. Inside, flashlight beams swept dusty shelves, old tires, stacked wood crates. All abandoned years, but in the deep right corner, Foray noticed something different. A rectangular iron box, externally locked with steel wire, covered in patchy rust. He signaled to open, used cutters. The lid flipped. A burnt smell rushed out. Inside was a pile of old clothes, many charred, mixed with black ash. Beneath the fabric were personal items, a metal wristwatch, round face, cracked glass, hand stopped at 10:42, 2 blackened buttons, and a folded paper envelope. Oil and ash stuck, handwritten, Dad, keep in warehouse. Evelyn Barker, sample collection lead, gloved, used tweezers to separate each item from the fabric pile. Touching the most charred shirt, she noticed a dark streak, like dried blood on the chest. She cut a fabric sample, sealed in separate bag, coded 74, new, B1. All box contents documented, photographed, carefully packaged. Foray examined the broken watch, hands matching the time in Trost's 1974 report. Marquette home clock stopped at 10:40. He wrote quickly in his notebook. Matches event time. After all items transferred to the examination center, Foray requested DNA analysis on the charred fabric. 2 days later, forensic lab report, blood sample 100% matched to Frank Marquette's DNA, confirming the shirt direct contact with the victim during bleeding. Fabric fiber analysis, cotton polyester blend, same type Frank wore per witness description at the track that night. This meant at least part of his clothing was retained and hidden in Rocco's warehouse, an act inexplicable except evidence concealment. While the tech team processed items, Foray focused on the handwritten envelope. The line Dad, keep in warehouse in black ink, right slanting script. Inside the envelope, 3 yellowed papers, corners soot stuck. Carefully unfolded, the writing clear. Maria's letter to Rocco, no specific date but content clearly referencing Frank's issue. A middle paragraph silenced the room. I can't take it anymore. I trust you know how to make everything quiet, just so no one finds anything. When done, I'll handle the rest. Final line signed M, with a blurred watermark, possibly tears or rain. Evelyn took the letter to preservation, used UV light for ink type. Results. Parker ink from early 1970s, fully matching case era. Independent handwriting expert concluded, letter sample 97% matched to Maria Devereaux's 1974 file and 1976 insurance handwriting. Foray reread each line, then set the letter down, face hardening. All his months-built hypotheses now had solid foundation. Maria and Rocco, not just accomplices, they premeditated the act. With the watch, matching 10:42 time, Frank's bloodied shirt, and the letter Foray held a closed evidence chain, intent, action, motive. He drafted a supplemental report direct to the Louisiana State Attorney's Office titled Evidence Addendum, Devereaux Storage Discovery. In it, he listed 1. Items recovered in Devereaux warehouse, iron box with charred clothes, watch, and handwritten letter. 2. Examination results, shirt blood matches Frank Marquette DNA, letter ink and handwriting match. Maria's samples. 3. Analysis, evidence proves post-crime concealment and prior discussion between subjects. 4. Recommendation, indict Rocco and Maria Devereaux for first-degree murder, evidence tampering, and insurance fraud. The 20-page report urgently transferred via official mail on May 4, 2011. In the attached memo, 4A added, new Baton Rouge evidence fully reinforces constructed crime model, organized act, clear financial and family motive, request immediate formal arrest warrants. That afternoon, as he left the lab, 4A stood in the hallway, looking at the enlarged photo of the letter temporarily pinned on the board. The line, "Just so no one finds anything," was like a silent confession, echoing in the quiet room. He closed his notebook, signed the final search sealing report. Below, the investigation clerk's bold text read clearly, supplemental evidence transferred to state prosecutor, basis for criminal indictment in Marquette case. August 2011, nearly a year after file hash 74-197 was reopened, formal arrest warrants were announced. Louisiana State Police coordinated with the FBI for 2 separate takedowns. Maria Devereaux was arrested in Houston, Texas, where she lived with a new husband under the alias Maria Dalton. Local police arrived in the morning as she left home for her accounting job at a small trading firm. The warrant was read clearly. You are under arrest for kidnapping, resulting in death, evidence destruction, and insurance fraud, per case file hash 74-197, Marquette. Maria stood silent a few seconds, eyes blank, then whispered, "I knew this day would come." She did not resist, only asked to bring her small leather wallet. At the same time in Baton Rouge, Rocco Devereaux was arrested at his home after a short raid. The 78-year-old still calm, sitting on a wooden porch chair when police arrived. When read his rights, he smirked faintly. "You're later than I thought." Inside the house, police seized several unopened .306 ammo boxes and the old, now rusted Remington 742 registration papers. The 2 suspects were taken to separate state prison cells awaiting trial. News of the arrests spread fast across Louisiana, especially in Hammond, where residents still vaguely recalled the Marquette family disappearance nearly 40 years earlier. September 2011, the Louisiana state prosecutor formally indicted both defendants with charges: kidnapping, resulting in death, complicity in first-degree murder, and criminal evidence destruction. The indictment file exceeded 400 pages, attaching all scientific, financial, and handwritten letter evidence. Tony Foray, the lead investigator, was designated the prosecution's key witness. He spent weeks with forensics and lawyers preparing every detail. The indictment described the action chain clearly from the night of July 3, 1974. Rocco, ambushing at Frank's home, shooting, burning the vehicle. Maria aiding preparation and later legalizing the incident via insurance files. All evidence aligned: DNA, ballistics, fingerprints, bank records, and the warehouse letter. The preliminary trial opened at the Baton Rouge Federal Court on November 2, 2011, presided by Judge Camille Durand. The courtroom packed with press and Hammond residents, many elderly, there just to hear the old story clearly. The 2 defendants brought in separately. Maria in gray prison garb, Rocco in an old jacket, hands trembling but eyes sharp and cold. When the judge read the charges, both pleaded not guilty. Maria stated, "I was not in Hammond that night. I only signed legal papers." Rocco said briefly, "I didn't kill my son-in-law. I just cleaned his house at my daughter's request." The trial lasted 3 weeks. On day 3, prosecution presented scientific evidence. Evelyn Barker was called as the first witness, explaining the red fabric discovery and DNA testing process. On the large screen, Chart showed DNA matches for Maria and Rocco in the gloves and evidence 74. Our prosecutor asked, any error probability making these results invalid? Evelyn answered firmly, no. Error rate under 0.1%. The DNA belongs to them. No mistake. The courtroom fell silent. Week 2, forensics presented physical evidence from the mud-excavated Chevrolet. Images of the burned-out vehicle, .3006 casing, and C-engraved necklace projected on screen. A ballistics expert confirmed the bullet matched the Remington 742-barrel Rocco registered. When asked, he only looked down. No answer. Prosecution continued with the forged insurance contract and bank records showing the $10,000 flow from Maria to Rocco post-payout. Financial evidence was seen as the critical motive link. Day 10, prosecution read part of Maria's warehouse letter to her father. In court, Maria bowed her head as the line, "I trust you know how to make everything quiet," echoed. Defense objected, arguing the letter has no date, cannot prove case relation. But the court admitted it after handwriting analysis confirmed 97% match to Maria's samples. Week 3, Tony Foray took the stand. He recounted the entire investigation, from discovering the red fabric to excavating the vehicle from mud. His voice even and slow, no emphasis, but every sentence heavy. When prosecution asked, "Do you believe these defendants intentionally killed Frank and Clara Marquette?" Foray replied, "Not belief. It's what all the evidence says." Defense tried focusing on lack of direct witnesses, arguing everything based on inference and circumstantial evidence. However, prosecution countered with the event chain analysis, DNA in evidence, bullet marks, insurance contract, money flow, and the letter, all forming a continuous proof system. Judge Durand repeatedly reminded defense, no arguing outside evidence scope. After 18 days of arguments, the 12-person jury was sent to deliberate. They took under 8 hours to reach a verdict. On the afternoon of November 24, 2011, the courtroom was packed. When the clerk read the conclusion, Defendant Maria Devereaux, guilty. Defendant Rocco Devereaux, guilty. Murmurs filled the room. Maria sat motionless, eyes forward expressionless. Rocco turned to his daughter, forced smile. "I told you no one escapes their mistakes." A week later, the court issued formal sentences. Maria Devereaux received life without parole for complicity in first-degree murder and insurance fraud. Rocco Devereaux was sentenced to life plus 25 years for organized murder execution and evidence destruction. Judge Durand said in the sentencing, 40 years of silence does not lessen truth's weight. Justice may come late, but never loses its way. As police escorted them from court, the public stood, many in tears. In the hallway, Tony Foray walked slowly, holding the completed file. He said nothing. Outside Baton Rouge, late fall rain began falling, like the night it all started nearly 40 years ago. Inside file hash 74197, the final page was typed clearly, bold text. Baton Rouge Trial 2011, 2 defendants convicted guilty. Maria life without parole. Rocco, life plus 25 years. December 2011, immediately after the sentence took effect, Louisiana State Police officially issued a closure notice for file hash 74197. Marquette, Frank and Clara, missing, 1974. The nearly 1,000-page file was resealed, marked with the prosecutor's red stamp, closed, conviction achieved. On the first page, Inspector Tony Foray's signature sat beside final report submitted. After 37 years, the disappearance once forgotten in Tangipahoa River mud finally had resolution. Foray's summary report was archived in the state files as a key milestone in long-term crime investigation history. He opened with a short sentence, "Justice came late, but it came." The report emphasized 3 decisive factors in solving the case: persistence in evidence preservation, modern DNA technology advances, and archive data integrity. If the red fabric, evidence 74, had been lost, If the blood sample untestable, or if Officer Scott Trost's handwritten notes not kept, then everything Foray and the cold case team did in 2010, 2011 would have been searching in the dark. At the year-end state police summary meeting, Director Anthony Heller called the Marquette case a prime example of technology and truth-keeping responsibility. He projected a comparison image series from the 1974 photo of the quiet riverside wooden house to the burned Chevrolet pulled from mud, then Foray and Evelyn Barker in the lab, holding the old red fabric. Each image a slice of time, linking 3 investigator generations. In his speech, Heller said, "No case is truly closed if the truth remains unspoken, and no truth stays buried forever if someone still holds one piece of evidence." Evelyn Barker, who first unsealed evidence 74R, was commended for special contribution. She said, "Only one sentence accepting the certificate. Sometimes a single dried blood sample can give voice back to the dead." The quote later appeared in the department's internal newsletter, a reminder of evidence preservation value. Inspector Tony Foray submitted retirement right after the final report. At the handover, he carried only a small copy of the excavation scene photo, where the C-engraved necklace was removed from mud. He told younger colleagues, "Justice is never fast, but it never loses its way. Our job is to keep the path open for its return." File #74197 was transferred to Baton Rouge Central Storage, placed in a separate iron cabinet for successfully solved cold cases. The archivist added a new label, "Reopened 2010, Closed 2011, Solved via DNA." The code was entered into the system for future training. In the summary, Louisiana State Police confirmed the Marquette case is one of the state's first cold cases fully resolved via DNA technology and ancient archive data reconstruction. This result helps set standards for re-investigating dormant cases. January 2012, American Law Enforcement Review published a 10-page analysis calling it a model case combining evidence archiving and genetic testing. The author wrote, "Not every cold case needs a miracle. Sometimes it just needs someone persistent who believes what they do still matters." In Hammond, the town where it all began, residents erected a small memorial by the Tangipahoa River bank, inscribed, "In memory of Frank and Clara Marquette, 1974-2011. Justice came late, but not forgotten." Below the plaque was a brick engraved with #74197, symbol of the longest mystery in Tangipahoa Parish history. In the archive office, the file's final report stated, "One case solved via DNA analysis of evidence, 74. R2. 2 defendants, sentenced to life and additional 25 years. 3. All evidence archived in Baton Rouge for training purposes. 4. File officially closed December 20, 2011. Below, Foray's signature slightly slanted, blue ink faintly faded. The summary report's final handwritten line, simple yet profound: "Justice came late, but never forgotten." The Marquette case story is not just a crime file solved after 37 years, but a mirror reflecting modern American society, where justice may be slow but it arrives, as long as people persistently seek truth. In today's America, with advancing forensic technology and data storage, this case reminds that science only truly matters when paired with professional conscience and responsibility. If Officer Scott Trost in 1974 had not carefully preserved the red fabric, if Tony Foray had not believed old files still held value, no DNA result could have brought justice to Frank and little Clara. In a nation that prizes justice like America, that lesson remains timeless. Every small action, though seemingly meaningless now, can become the foundation for protecting truth in the future. The story also conveys a message about integrity and moral courage. Maria and Rocco Devereaux hid their crime for 40 years, believing time could erase all traces. But in American society, where faith in the rule of law is paramount, justice is not forgotten just because decades have passed. The Marquette case is a warning that no deception lasts forever in a system that knows how to remember. Finally, from small things like file storage methods, an investigator's dedication, or a community's belief in justice, the story reminds today's Americans that the right thing may take a lifetime to prove, but if someone persists, truth will always find its way back. If you believe justice, even late, is worth waiting for. Subscribe to the channel to join us exploring more cases decoded after decades of silence. Thank you for following the Marquette case. See you in the next video, where another American mystery will be revealed.